In many areas of Sydney, the local councils are proposing an increase in homeowner rates by $3.29 per week. The reason being cited is the booming population of these places. Well, the population isn't booming due to natural-born births, now is it? Immigration has outpaced the birth rate of this country to the point that, in 2023, we had a net legal migration of 536,000 people. That's over 500,000 people in 1 year and over 40,000 people every month. In 2024, it was 446,000, that's almost 40,000 people a month, not including those who arrive illegally. This is completely unsustainable, and we are currently undergoing a housing crisis, and jam-packing our cities with this many people is making it worse. In fact, it's one of the reasons the housing crisis exists to begin with. Not only has the government facilitated and even promoted the pushing of millions of immigrants into the country, something us Aussies never asked for, but they are making Aussies who were here first, who own a home, pay for it. Pay for something they never asked for and don't want. As of February, we currently have over 800,000 immigrant students, many of which aren't going to stay here but are going to go back to their host countries once they graduate. This means that what they are learning isn't going to benefit Australia or Australians. It is only going to benefit their country and their people. Our nation does not benefit from this. We suffer as it makes the housing crisis worse, and the only ones here who benefit are the universities in terms of monetary gain. Those are the immigrants who won't stay in the country. Even if we look at those who will, many of them aren't actually needed. One of the arguments for immigration is that we need more nurses and doctors because we don't have enough to handle the amount of people who need attention. What this line of argumentation fails to consider, however, is the fact that one of the reasons we have so many people who need attention is because we are importing so many people. Immigration has created and is proliferating a problem that leftists are absurdly arguing we need immigration to solve. If the population was increasing at such a rate due to natural-born births, then we would naturally produce just as many nurses and doctors as we are potentially importing. When I have spoken about the housing crisis with people, I have been told that to solve this problem, we need to build more houses, and to do this, we should import more people who will work in residential construction. The problem with this is that, for one, these people who you would import need housing as well, and that the sheer numbers of people we are bringing in, nearly 500,000 people every year, if not over that number, are outpacing any degree of infrastructure we can put in place, even with immigrant workers which, by the way, are often willing to work for less than minimum wage. This incentivizes bosses to hire them over Aussies who were born here and demand to work a wage that they are worth. Australia ought to be a country where this is not allowed to happen, yet these immigrants, who are readily willing to work for less, are directly facilitating this immorality. It is often through no fault of their own, to be fair. However, this is what is happening, and governmental intervention in business clearly isn't resolving this issue. The government cutting immigration and sending many immigrants back who don't need to be here would, on the other hand, stop this immorality from happening in this country. Another issue with our immigration problem is that they are coming in such vast numbers as to make assimilation into our culture impossible. If you look at where these people congregate, they speak to each other in their own language, not ours, which shows an unwillingness to truly assimilate into the host culture, as language is a part of culture. Not only that, but many don't seem to speak English at all, even after spending years, if not decades here, which is extremely disrespectful. They decorate the outside of their homes and businesses in the way of their culture or religious beliefs, not Australian beliefs, their beliefs. For instance, with Diwali, there was a whole street that was completely decorated in lights for this festival. a Hindu festival that isn't Aussie and was inorganically pushed by government officials and capitalistic corporations. This is a congregation of people who do not think like us, who do not share the same beliefs and values as us, who are not assimilating into the host culture, but are trying to push their culture onto us, and are immigrating into our culture at an incredibly rapid rate. In the past 10 years alone, over 500,000 Indians have become citizens of this country. The fact that Aussies are quickly becoming a minority in this country shows that our culture and way of life is becoming a minority culture in our own nation. These immigrants, who are not assimilating, but are gathering together and living in their own cultural enclaves that are growing larger and are slowly crowding out the host culture of this country. This is not the way it ought to be. The culture of a nation should be the culture created by the people who founded and built it, not a hodgepodge of cultures from countries that the people of which don't even want to live in. I am an atheist. I do not want celebrating Vishnu to become a normal thing or for Islam to spread like an ideological parasite throughout my country. With that being said, this nation was founded and built by Christians, largely Anglo and Celtic Christians, using inherently Christian moral value systems in doing so. From our legal system, which is based upon English common law, a system developed by Anglo-Saxons using inherently Christian moral frameworks, to our government, to our culture, it all comes largely from Britain, from an Anglo and Celtic people. Before, I mentioned the specific religions that I did, Hindu and Islam, partly because these belief systems are largely being ported from India. Indians are the second highest group of non-Aussies in this country, making up nearly 1 million people, with over 500,000 of these coming in just the past 10 years. Unlike with British immigrants, for instance, Great Britain being the empire that founded this nation, and thus our country, like I have said before, stems from their Anglo-Celtic culture with influences from cultures across Europe in general. Indian culture is extremely different from our own, from the way they dress, to their religions, to their disgusting street food practices, to their language, to the general East Asian tendency for incest. Making assimilating into our culture, rather than forming their own conclaves, even harder for them than for, say, an Englishman, and making their culture far less compatible, if not completely incompatible, with Aussie culture, with the host culture of the country they are swarming into in massive numbers.